What's the feather do? Oh, it jumps? The feather jumps. Welcome back to Serpo. Oh, do we have some mic here? We got some mic. Okay, welcome back to Serpo Experience, and we are going over some things now that are going to be dealing with Ukraine and the possibility of World War III, which is it's coming. It's coming, and I said 2 years ago that it was getting closer. Now we kind of spoke about this before, but China is now supplying Russia with weapons. Now, if you looked at Russia, they're incompetent. They have bulletproof vests with just plastic inside of them, shin plates, things that will not protect you against a bullet. They basically don't have the right weaponry. They have tanks and things that are breaking down constantly. I saw a picture of a guy that had a weapon, I believe that was from 1919. When a soldier dies, they just pick up another weapon. Now, Putin does this where he just throws human beings at it. So millions die. Now, the worst thing about this is that he's attacking civilians. I had seen a video of a jet coming in at a very slow, lofting speed and fire a missile directly into an apartment complex. This kind of warfare is not warfare. This is more terrorism than anything. You're supposed to be going after infrastructure. You're supposed to be going after water supply lines, electricity, government communication satellites, anything in order to close in and use the geography in order to create basically ruses or even to just produce squeeze points where you can fire rockets up and over. But no, they're deliberately attacking the Ukrainian people, which is just appalling. It's really just appalling. So we're going to start taking a look at just some of the things in the last 4 weeks that have just kind of come out about what's actually going to happen. Now, the biggest problem is that you got North Korea, which would side with China. You got India, which would side with China. India is right now fighting with Pakistan over the border. So we have basically the greatest economy, which is China. They have a huge population control problem because of back in the 80s that they had the one son policy. Now, because of the family name, and not most importantly that, but the family business wanted to be ran by males. And so they would kill the females or they would take and smuggle them out of the country. So the problem that we're having is we're having 1 million men with one female companion possible. So you got a lot of single men. And it's going to be hard to keep up with your population. You do have a lot of soldiers, though. And if you look at the capitalist communist party, which we'll get into TikTok. We'll get into TikTok later. But it's just spyware because there's an appendage of everything that is required by capitalism in the Communist Party. So if you are a business and you make money, you are an appendage of the government. So they tell you what to do. Obviously, looking at the media, that's number one. But they have another problem. The other problem is that the water, which, if I would look up, if I would look up China River, the river that's probably Yellow River flooded. No, I want to see. I want to see a map because the Chinese River here Okay, let's see if I can actually get a close up here. That's too close. That's too close. So it looks like the Shanghai River. But basically, it goes from the north of China, from Beijing, and it covers going south. So the problem they're having is they can't get this water up to the north of China. And because of that, they have people that obviously don't have enough drinking water. The second problem they have is that they have now water for growing their crops. So we have starvation happening. So right now, in the next 10 years, next 20 years, China has a severe problem because their elderly population doesn't have anybody to take care of them. They're basically as 30-year-olds, and then 40 and 50, the ones that would have the economic ability to purchase the homes and keep those things going. There isn't enough people. And on top of that, they lack, because of being communist and everybody being the same, they don't have, is it intuition? I think that might be, that's not the right word, but that's not intuition, but they can't come up with new technologies very easily. So they are superpowered, but when they join with Russia, Russia has lots of people. And when you join those two together and you put India in there and you put in North Korea in there, now we have a serious situation. So we cannot move this border. We can't have NATO moving closer and closer. It's just disaster. So let's get into this, though, and let's see what happened 4 weeks ago when we're talking about moving tanks in. And with these tanks, we have to be very careful not to push the limits too far, because if we start to put in jeopardy the government standing of the dictatorship, basically dictatorship of Russia, that he could launch nukes. So this would be World War III. This would be the start. I believe it's already started, with a lot of things that have been happening. The spy balloons have been coming over. Now I think they're gathering intelligence in order to make their move. Taiwan might be first, and Russia's going to back them, and China's going to back them, and India's going to back them. North Korea is going to back them, but North Korea really doesn't have a leg to stand on. I think we should have took them out many times before. We have the technology. Come on. The OSS back in the 50s, I think it was surprise, kill, vanish. And the CIA still very much does that. We have assassins in 167 countries, so we just got to take out Kim Jong-un, take him out, and then start a coup. I mean, we already did it with the Democratic Party since the 80s. Hillary Clinton and all sorts of Bill Clinton. It's been part of the party, it seems. Now, this is opinion, but I know that there's facts that have been found, and I'm sure I can locate them, and I probably will. So let's go ahead and let's continue and get back into this.
U.S. and its Western allies are pledging heavy tanks to Ukraine ahead of a potential Russian offensive in the spring. National Security Council's John Kirby laid out the timeline on Friday.
The Leopard tanks will probably get there from the Germans and from our European allies and partners. Will get there in relatively short order, probably in time to help them in the spring and summer. The American tanks, the Abrams, will take a little bit more time. It'll take many months before they can get on the ground.
Joining us now is CNN military analyst Colonel Cedric Leighton. So, Colonel Leighton, German Leopard tanks could be there relatively soon. As you heard there, though, from John Kirby, the Abrams tanks, it could take a while. Are they going to get there too late?
Well, it really depends, Pamela. And when you look at the difference, first of all, they've talked about 321 tanks, according to the Ukrainian ambassador to France, being sent to Ukraine. So that's a large number. That is basically what the Ukrainians asked for. They asked for around 300 to 400 tanks. So they're getting what they need. But let's take a look at the Leopard tank. So this is the German Leopard tank, very capable tank. It has a 120 millimeter cannon that's associated with it, just like the Abrams does. Good armor, can be used in a lot of different environments, very maneuverable, and it has a lot of firepower along with it. But it has less required training time than the Abrams tank does. And the Abrams tank that you see right there, that is one that is extremely powerful. It is basically the top of the line armor vehicle that the U.S. uses for these kinds of purposes. Highly maneuverable, but it does require a lot of maintenance and a huge logistics tail in this case.
And an advisor to President Zelensky says Ukraine is negotiating with Western allies to access long-range missiles and aircrafts. How would that help change the war? And do you see this dynamic continue to play out where they get something and then they say, okay, well, here's what's next on our wish list?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different things that they could potentially get. So take a look at the ATACMS system, for example. This is a system that has about 190 mile range, and it can really affect longer range areas. So it's considered a short range system, but it's long range enough that it would, for example, go after Crimean targets. So if the Ukrainians want to go after Crimea, this is one thing that they would do there. Now in the fighter jet world, this is an F-16, courtesy of the Danish Air Force in this particular case, but what it can do is it can move around very maneuverably. It is the top of the line aircraft, although it's almost 50 years old. First flight was about 49 years ago. These aircraft are really the mainstay, or have been until recently, the mainstay of the U.S. Air Force, and it's a real big part of the NATO inventory, and that's something though that they would require a lot of training on, anywhere, depending on the experience of the pilot, anywhere from 3 months, that's a real bare minimum, highly unlikely, all the way to a year or more. So this training pipeline,
I think we're looking at about
is going to be a very long one, a very
15 years.
Kim Jong-un's sister is weighing
If
in on
China
this,
gets
and
involved.
She's denouncing the Western decision to send tanks to Ukraine. She says the people of North Korea will always stand with Russia, quote, always stand in the same trench as Russia. Where do you see the war going next?
So when it comes to the war, that's going to be a really interesting thing. So when you look at what you have here on the main map, you have the possibility of the Russians coming in not only from the east, but also potentially from the south, going into these directions. That's what they want to do. So if you go to a more detailed map of the Eastern Front, for example, the big fighting that you have around Soledar, around Bakhmut, all those areas here becomes a symbol for what the Russians want to do. Now, Bakhmut by itself is not very strategically significant. However, it is on a main highway that goes this way, and if they can use that highway, that could potentially be a gateway for the Russians to move forward into Ukrainian-controlled territory. But they're going to, in essence, try to work around a stalemate. The Ukrainians are trying to run the clock out, and they're trying to make it so that they can fight the Russians and at the very least keep them here. But their real goal is to eliminate the Russians from this part right here, this so-called land bridge. That is where the Ukrainians want to move in the opposite direction and bring the Russians in this way and force them out of the country.
All right, really interesting. Thank you so much, Colonel.
All right. I mean, so let's talk about a little bit about Putin and what is angering him, okay? Just so people can understand what nuclear
NATO
is
a
NATO.
child of the Cold War. When it was founded in 1949, there were 12 members. Today, the club has expanded to 30, 2 in North America, 28 in Europe. NATO is built around the principle of collective defense, which means an attack on one member is an attack on all of them. Their rival during the Cold War was the Warsaw Pact, a similar alliance led by the Soviet Union. 3 NATO members are also nuclear powers: the US, UK, and France. Together, NATO makes up around 57% of global military spending. The United States is the undeclared leader, providing 22% of the alliance's budget. NATO's power center is in Brussels. From its Cold War days, the NATO is programmed to target Russia. Today it faces a new threat from further east, a belligerent China.
All right, so I just wanted to kind of show that what I was talking about is what I was talking about NATO being such a slap in the face. And you heard it right there. It is primarily just to go after Russia. Okay, so what we want to look at the evolution of the map. So let's take a look at this. And while I got you here, don't forget to hit the subscribe, hit the follow, hit the bell, and hit the like, and spread this out as far as we can, so that we can we can get more views on this. This is subjects that really need to be brought to light, especially to the younger generation, the ones that are protesting about certain things. They need to be prepared. Things are really getting out of hand. I'm 38, and in the last 20 years, I have never seen something so baffling where history does not, it just doesn't make any sense. So we got U.S. and Canada. U.S. funding 22% of NATO. Okay, Ukraine now wants to join NATO. So that's pretty big. So this is the military power, and this is really what the slap in the face is. Because NATO, again, of course, is against the Russian Federation. Their primary goal is to fight Russia. You can see it's definitely overstaffed. It's I mean, NATO's obviously has a lot more, 186 million. 2.1 million. So this would be World War III. It'd be NATO, Russia, which would be allied and Axis. Okay, not a big difference in infantry, or not infantry, APCs. Big difference in armored vehicles. Russia wouldn't stand a chance, but I wonder what a comparison in China is now. Okay, so we can see I want to see what China is going to look like now. Okay, let's see what we got here. So if these two join together, not good. Okay, nuclear weapons. We got a lot more, but that's more than enough to cause a nuclear winter. Okay, so 2 million plus the other ones. We still have them doubled. Okay, it would be kind of a close war. Oh, not anymore. Okay, so World War III makes me feel more plausible. The only thing is the nukes and dirty bombs and biological warfare. Okay, armored carriers, we got China beat by a lot, but we don't have them beat. We don't have them beat with a lot of these armored vehicles here. When you add them with Russia, again with Russia, it's gonna be a kind of a close one. Okay, so we're definitely on the front there. We're good there. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right, and that's not including all the other aircrafts. We have a lot more than 3,500 aircrafts. Okay. Yeah, that's our spy, our radar spy. That's our, I guess, EMPs, things like that. Reconnaissance. We still can use SR-71, but we probably would use the Blackbird, whatever it's called now. Okay, what kind of helis? Attack helicopters. Alright, so, now the thing you gotta remember too is that the Russians, they're so poorly maintained that most of them are non-functional. Okay, so we can fly directly across from the United States to attack. The drones, oh, we got them killed. Navy assist. Yeah, we can control trade, so they can't stop trade coming in and out. We could also do sanctions to stop the war. A sanction would probably be the best way to do it. Most of the frigates and stuff are protection vessels that go along with battleships. Now these carry our nukes. They can carry our nukes. Okay, so we have a lot more transportation options. Wow. It's a big difference. It's a big difference. Okay, so this next thing I want to watch is this is probably how some believe that it would play out. Okay, now I don't know if I completely agree with this.
Russia's on the warpath,
but
if successful in Ukraine is unlikely to stop there. Lithuania, with EU support, has shut off the flow of military and economic material to the Russian enclave of Kaliningrad, triggering a threat of invasion by Russia in retaliation. A world away, China flexes its muscles as it threatens the United States and their continued support for Taiwan. Fears of World War III are growing by the day, and the United States is taking them very, very seriously. Before we discuss how the US is preparing for the Third World War, first we need to know what its potential enemies are doing. China has long been preparing for a confrontation with the US as it seeks to become the world's dominant superpower. Currently, China falls short of the qualifications for a global superpower, qualifications which only the US fills at the moment. But with its dizzying economic and military growth, it might be less than a decade before the Chinese Communist Party can project power all over the world. China's preparations for a showdown with the West include dislodging the United States as the most important economic power in the world. It also has safeguards to its own economic interests in the wake of economic warfare versus the US, and to achieve this aim in 2013, it launched the Belt and Road Initiative. This massively ambitious plan included building new land and sea trade routes all over the world to connect China economically with nations all the way from Europe to Africa. To achieve this, the nation has not just invested in its own infrastructure, but in building trade infrastructure in other nations as well. However, China's partnership with host nations is more often than not.
Now, if World War III started, we could make huge sanctions on them. We could actually starve them out even more than what they're doing.
Must be hired to do the construction, leaving few jobs for locals. Interest rates on the debt traps is often so high that a poor third world nation is guaranteed to default. Included in the penalties for defaulting are clauses such as China owning exclusive rights to the infrastructure it builds for terms as long as a century. It is in effect a modern version of soft colonialism. China's plan is to have heavy influence in the trade of goods throughout Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, putting it in a very strong position to dictate geopolitics in its ever-growing sphere of influence. China's next preparation for war with the US includes securing its vulnerable trade routes through the South China Sea and the very valuable oil and natural gas.
This is what I was talking about, this area. Plus, they also hold the lithium and a lot of natural resources that we need for batteries.
Despite an international by the World Court in The Hague that such island building and claims to economic exclusion zones around them were illegal. Foreign pressure also failed to stop China from stealing claims to oil supplies by neighbors such as Vietnam, or of using its coast guard to bully and intimidate the merchant and fishing fleets of other nations out of their own territorial waters. These islands have now become heavily fortified military installations, which include modern missile defenses, runways long enough for long-range attack aircraft, and an ever-growing network of surveillance assets, all geared for one purpose: detect, track, and destroy the U.S. Navy. Further preparations have included the addition of dozens of new ships to the People's Liberation Navy.
So people that don't think that World War III is already in effect, it definitely is. These new spy balloons coming in is them getting closer. And with Russia going after, there you go.
That the two nations might partner up in an attempt
Exactly.
to turn the U.S.-led world order on its head. Despite China's increasing capabilities, it still does not have the power to defeat the U.S. in a one-on-one confrontation.
No,
And
but
it
with
might just
NATO,
let the US take
it
partnering
definitely
with
could
Russia,
help.
thus forcing America to choose fighting between China in the Pacific or Russia in Europe. For decades, the United
Or
States
both.
maintained a policy of
NATO
fielding a powerful
fighting
enough
over
military
another
to
one,
fight and win
and then
two
us
simultaneous
taking
wars
over
against
trade
nuclear
routes and
adversaries.
sanctions
However,
in
with
China.
China's rapid ascension, this has become officially impossible.
While we could also take out North Korea too by stopping transport in there.
The question is,
We would have to send in probably a Delta Force of some sort to take him out.
Third World War. First, the situation in the Pacific might seem dire with China's numerically superior navy, but the real measure of naval power is not the number of vessels, but in the number of battle force missiles. These are the number of missiles that both navies can bring to bear against each other. The U.S. maintains around 10,000 missiles versus the PLAN's estimated 2,000. Though those numbers have changed and will continue to change as China fields larger vessels and both navies shift in composition. It's estimated that by 2030, China might have closed the gap in battle force missiles to 2/3 of U.S. capabilities. The U.S.'s first line of defense against China is the place that's likely to be ground zero for World War III. Taiwan,
That's what I was speaking of before.
democracy broke away from the mainland after
They
the
controlled
nationalists were
95% of the semiconductors. We need it for everything.
Leadership has become a vibrant democracy that has refused to reunify and put themselves under control of the Chinese Communist Party. Securing Taiwan is not just important for the ever-intensifying global clash between authoritarianism and democracy, but
It was
also for
about
very
trying to
important
control
political and
democracy
economic
and give it to the
reasons.
entire
Taiwan
world.
produces around
It's
50%
probably the
of
right
semiconductors
choice,
after
but not the
US companies
WEF
production at
choice.
home do
Not
expense.
one world
Semiconductors are
government.
important for every single gadget in your life. The global economy quite literally runs on them, and they've become as valuable as a commodity as gas.
See,
and
there's
oil.
the semiconductor
China itself
there.
produces between 25 and 30% of the world's semiconductor supply. So if China were to take Taiwan, it would now be in control of 3/4 of the global semiconductor supply. This would allow China to effectively shut
It's
down the
actually been
economy of
reported
any nation that disagrees
95%,
with it
so
by simply embargoing
it could be
the sale of semiconductors,
75% to
giving China
95%.
incredible power to further control global affairs and reducing the West's ability to oppose its authoritarianism. Taiwan is also politically important as it makes up part of what's known as the First Island Chain. This is a chain of islands that extends from Japan to the Philippines and acts as a very physical barrier to the expansion of Chinese influence in the Pacific. If China were to take Taiwan, it would not just break this carefully orchestrated containment strategy, but allow China to effectively neuter Japan's ability to resist it. With aircraft and ships stationed off Taiwan, China could target Japan's lines of communication and trade routes that cross the Pacific and hem the nation in, forcing it into subservience under threat of economic starvation. If China takes Taiwan, the U.S. commitments to defend the Philippines and Japan would be made much more difficult, if not impossible. To defend Taiwan, the U.S. has inked several deals, selling the nation advanced weapon systems ranging from fighter aircraft to air and missile defenses. U.S. military advisors have worked closely with the Taiwanese counterparts for years to prepare the nation for invasion. Despite threats from China, the flow of U.S. arms to Taiwan continues unabated, and recently U.S. President Joe Biden publicly voiced for the first time an unacknowledged truth in American politics. The United States will come to the defense of Taiwan. And
He's making a lot
this greatly
of
angered
mistakes.
China, and the White House press corps
He should have
was
never
forced to
said
stay
that.
back. But what seemed like a political guffaw was likely yet another bit of intrigue meant to further the American strategy of keeping China guessing as to how the U.S. might react to an invasion. If China cannot accurately predict what America will do should it invade Taiwan, it serves to create confusion and doubt amongst Chinese leadership. Should China prepare its economy for a flurry of global sanctions like Russia received after its invasion of Ukraine? Or should China expect American F-18s to swarm the skies over Taiwan and sink their invasion fleet? Strategic ambiguity is a powerful tool, and political theater is an excellent method for creating it. But the U.S. is not planning on fighting a war against China alone. To this end, it has helped increase the capabilities of allies such as Japan and most notably Australia, who recently signed a military cooperation pact between itself, the United States, and the United Kingdom. The pact will not just provide security cooperation between the countries, but also help arm Australia with a fleet of nuclear attack submarines. This is of grave concern to the Chinese, who recently attempted to charm Australia away from its relationship with the U.S., a tactic which ultimately failed. In 10 years' time, China might not have to face off just against the U.S. and British submarines, but Australian submarines also, putting the
Crazy,
People's
isn't
Liberation
it?
Navy
Absolutely
as well as its
crazy.
all-important sea trade routes at increased risk. China imports most of its oil and gas over its seaborne trade routes, and this is exactly what the U.S.
They
is doing
controlled
to target in
Japan
case of war
at this
in order
point.
to strangle the Chinese economy. Recently, security meetings between Japan, India, the U.S., and Australia were revived after a pause during President Trump's term. The Quad, as it's informally known, aims to tackle global problems such as global warming, cybersecurity, and ensuring a free and open trade environment in the Pacific. This is a veiled implication of
Okay, stop real quick on global warming. It's a really easy fix. Well, not an easy fix, but if you take people out of poverty and you give them cheap electricity, drinking water, the amenities that every natural human being should have, stop of crime, so policing. If you give this to the entire world, global warming will begin to fix itself because people will be able to look down the line of 5 years, 10 years, 20 years and be able to see what's really, what's really important, what's really going on. So you have to take people out of poverty, because when you're in poverty and you're just looking for your next, meal to eat, and all of a sudden electricity, you can't afford it. You got to walk 20 miles to get water. All of these things. Now, when it comes down to it, if you're poor, when you want to survive, what you're going to do is, if you have coal, you're going to burn coal. If you have wood, you're going to burn wood. It just depends on what's the easiest to survive. So in order to, change climate, you can't have these 18, 20, 22-year-old college students, which I'm sorry, most of them are just idiots. They don't even know what they're talking about. I can show example after example after example, but they don't even know, like, here, okay, give me your cell phone. Give me this, give me that, give me that. No, I don't want to do that. Well, then you're not really for the environment. Anyway, a little bit of rant. Let's continue, though. Let's continue, though.
Of the Quad's discussions on how to best handle China's expansion in the South Pacific. Currently, the Quad has no military commitment to each other, but that might change in the future as President Joe Biden makes the South Pacific and confronting China an area of pressing concern for the U.S. India is the only nation in the Quad without a formal security agreement with the U.S., and it has historically refused to sign on to any security partnerships with any nation. However, that may soon change as tensions between India and China escalate, and it becomes clear that India is not able to win a war against the superior Chinese military on its own.
I may be wrong about India and China.
In the South Pacific would effectively hem China in on all sides, and more importantly, put Allied ships and planes directly in the path of China's trade routes through the Indian Ocean.
I know India against Pakistan. I thought India was with China.
To confronting China. War with China would be waged at sea and in the skies, with very little of any action between the People's Liberation Army and the U.S. Army. This will be a war of ships and planes, not of tanks and artillery, and the U.S. is preparing accordingly. In an attempt to prepare for a confrontation with China in the skies, the U.S. has accelerated the procurement of F-35s and made getting squadrons of the fifth-generation fighter into operational status a top priority. However,
don't forget to hit that like button so it spreads this out and other people can see this new talk show that I'm working on. Please, it would help out great.
Such as the F-15 Eagle for the U.S. Air Force and the F-18 Super Hornet for the U.S. Navy.
And don't forget about the F-22 and the F-35.
Arsenal of ballistic missiles capable of targeting U.S. ships far out.
And of course, the drones. The drones are just amazing.
Starting in 2015, the Navy also began to work on undoing the strategy of carrier-based sea dominance that it's employed since the end of the Cold War. With the fall of the Soviet Union, the U.S. Navy enjoyed unmatched superiority and complete freedom of action anywhere in the world, and thus surface fleets were retasked with simply protecting carriers. Anti-submarine warfare and anti-surface warfare skills had atrophied as naval strategy centered completely around the big carriers. Now the U.S. Navy is preparing its crews to once again face off against near-peer foes in ship-to-ship battles. Submarines are America's second greatest naval asset after aircraft carriers, and yet remain nearly completely forgotten by most of the world, which is exactly how they like it. Currently, the U.S. has a fleet of 68 submarines and is replacing the Cold War Los Angeles-class fast attack submarines with the new Virginia class.
The Virginia class is apparently like analog to digital.
A significant advantage in undersea combat, despite China having a larger force of less advanced submarines. The realm of hypersonic missiles has received a great deal of attention ever since it was announced that the U.S. was lagging behind
China has,
in its development. Yet there's some misinformation and confusion regarding this technology.
I think there's propaganda coming from China and Russia.
In this realm, when they really don't. Firstly, any ballistic missile is hypersonic, and China's recent test that saw a hypersonic missile fly around the world is not very impressive from a military point of view. Technically speaking, this simply doesn't add any additional capability that didn't already exist. The real threat from hypersonic missiles comes from maneuverable hypersonics. These are missiles that can not only fly at hypersonic speeds, but can also maneuver while doing so.
Which the U.S. is probably at the forefront.
Are still struggling to field fully operational missiles, but the U.S. has made great strides in recent tests.
Right,
An area where the U.S. may in fact be coming up short is the development of advanced long-range air-to-air missiles. Recent photos of Chinese jets show that China has begun to field advanced beyond visual range missiles, while the U.S. is still largely equipped with the AIM-120, an extremely capable and combat-proven air-to-air missile.
Yeah, that's got to be close, more close range.
However, the Pentagon's
medium range
aims to improve the capabilities of American air-to-air missiles by not just greatly expanding their range, but also improving efficiency.
This one's crazy. Laser.
A new generation of American missiles will feature
and it can. I can't remember how far it can go, but it's like 5 miles or something like that.
Envelope to increase lethality and improved high-angle off-bore sight capability, allowing pilots to fire missiles without their plane being pointed directly at the enemy, thus lowering their vulnerability. However, the next step for U.S. fighters is the AIM-260, which will feature beyond visual range
260. That's what it was.
Longer-range opposition missiles while bringing the tried and true technologies of the AIM-120. But World War III will also likely involve action against Russia in Europe, as China and Russia are both likely to cooperate in such a scenario. This will be a partnership of opportunity, however, not of choice, as relations between the nations are difficult at best, and Russia grows increasingly frustrated at its status as the junior partner. With Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the Russian military has proven itself incompetent, corrupt, and inept at executing a modern 21st century war.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
The Russian offensive in Ukraine has all but stalled out. And this is with Russian forces facing a foe that has a fraction of the capabilities of the U.S. military. Simply put, the only real threat Russia can bring to a global war scenario is their nuclear power. With the bulk of the U.S. Army not taking part in operations in the Pacific, Russia would be easily contained by current U.S. ground firepower, while NATO would be short on critical air assets. These are capability gaps easily filled in by NATO air forces. 4 months ago, we would have spent an additional 10 minutes explaining to you how the U.S. is preparing to counter Russia. Today, after seeing what the Russian military is capable of, we honestly don't have to. While victory would come at a cost, NATO would most likely win a resounding victory over the Russian armed forces. The only real threat Russia would pose would be in the first few weeks as the bulk of American firepower is being shipped across the Atlantic and prepared for battle. This leaves the Baltics and Poland vulnerable, but the deployment of NATO rapid response forces would likely be enough to slow down an initial Russian offensive and greatly limit its gains until NATO's European partners can fully mobilize their own armies. U.S. strategy to counter Russian aggression in the next World War is thus based around preparing European partners to better defend their own continent and not be so reliant on the U.S. military, as the conflict against China will consume the bulk of U.S. sea and air power. The Pacific is where the real war will play out, and after its stunning losses in Ukraine, it's unlikely Russia would willingly engage NATO in a third world war anyway. Now go check out World War III hour by hour.
So just let's just start going over that just a little bit. So, there definitely is. They're incompetent. All right, now China joining in, going after Taiwan, and then being able to basically starve out Japan by blocking trade routes. We could sanction on China, obviously, and stop any type of transportation and trade, but we would have to use our Navy in order to keep the trade routes open. And Taiwan, we would actually have to move in probably military. So World War III is coming to, well, it's coming to a point. It's coming to a point. So let's get prepared on that. I was gonna let you hear what the CIA director thinks of Putin, but you know what? I think we got enough about what Putin is. All right. So what I want to do is I want to look at some international news. Not so much. I'm thinking more international disasters. Okay, well, let's look. Look. You know, I'm just kind of scanning. Just let's do something like this. Let's do something like this. Now, this is kind of like rubberducking. I know it's sad, but let's just imagine that. Well, this is
from a bridge getting washed
really
away
caught.
by Hurricane Fiona as she battered Puerto Rico, and a group of climbers narrowly escaping a deadly avalanche on Mount Everest, to a violent storm in Texas blowing apart a suburban neighborhood, and a massive landslide in central China that almost ruined one driver's morning commute. Here are 10 shocking natural disasters that were caught on camera.
Underworld, shout out to Underworld, great videos, right? I'll subscribe to you. I'll give you a thumb
One
up.
of the fastest growing communities in the United States.
Do the same for me. Subscribe. Hit that bell. To give a thumb likes up. Spread this video.
2019, both
I would
communities fell
appreciate
victim
it.
to the Great June Flood, the sequel, as the National Weather Service calls it. Over a foot of rain battered Hidalgo County for 6 grueling hours. The wind blew sideways, and hundreds of streets were inundated with water. Footage taken during the heart of the storm gives new meaning to the term Texas flood.
It looks like a derecho. Yeah, that's got to be a derecho or a tornado, but probably a derecho. I had one of those hit over at my house about 3 years ago, and yeah, you couldn't see maybe about, I would say, a foot outside the glass of the
If it's
window.
not bolted to the ground, it's not safe. Our homeowners bravely record the violent storm from their patio, but it gets too dangerous to stay outside. The power clearly went out a long time ago, judging by the dim candles we see all over the house. The sequel came about 367 days after a massive storm in June of 2018 caused similar damage across the Rio Grande Valley. Once the rain subsided in 2019, over 1,100 homes were either destroyed or suffered major
Terrible.
damage.
Absolutely
The sequel
terrible.
caused between $50 and $100 million worth of destruction, maybe even more. On September 18th of 2022, Hurricane Fiona smashed into Puerto Rico. She brought 111-mile-per-hour winds and dropped about 2 feet of rain on the island, resulting in widespread flooding. In the town of Utuado, the flooding caused the Guanica River to overflow. First responders watched helplessly as the bridge connecting both sides.
It makes me think, I mean, flash floods are really, really fast, but sometimes people just drive into them. I don't get it.
The bridge never stood a chance against the raging current. You can hear it crack before it breaks free on the other side. The river pulls the bridge downstream, dragging the guardrails behind like a rope. Rescue workers can hardly believe what they're seeing. Just when things couldn't get any worse, now they're stuck on opposite sides of the river. The bridge was built in 2017 after Hurricane Maria knocked out the original. The metal bridge was supposed to be temporary.
It's got to be tough living in hurricane land. I mean, I can't imagine what homeowners insurance cost. It's got to be outrageous.
April 25th of 2015 was the deadliest day in Mount Everest's history. A 7.8 magnitude earthquake ravaged Nepal, triggering a massive avalanche near the southern base camp. According to The Guardian, there were at least 300 climbers and hundreds more Sherpas on the mountain when the avalanche struck. Those above base camp at camps 1 and 2 were okay. It was those waiting down below that caught the brunt of it. Our climbers must have just felt the earthquake. One of them comments on how scary it is. Then someone calls out with a terrifying warning.
Oh no, avalanche.
Oh, wait for a minute. Oh my god. You had an earthquake before? Whoa, 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 whoa! Fuck!
I don't know what you do in that moment.
They sprint back towards the tents, looking back over their shoulders.
I mean, you can get in a tent and...
Unfortunately, there is no outrunning the massive wave of snow.
Get in a tent, I guess. I don't know what else to do.
Ah, fuck.
Hopefully they weren't much closer. Maybe they were.
Our climbers disappear in a blanket of snow. All we can hear are their desperate gasps. It sounds like they make it inside a tent, judging by the zipper sound and the yellow hue.
Oh, okay. So they're covered. All right, thank God. Wow. Wow.
The men cough and gasp for air. They were fortunate to be alive, but had no idea how bad things were for others on the mountain. Different sources put the avalanche death toll between 17 and 24. All told, April 25th of 2015 was the deadliest day in Everest history. Luckily, everybody in this video was safe.
Way to go.
The Philippine capital of Manila is the country's second most populated city. Home to about 1.8 million people, the city is known as the Pearl of the Orient and is full of museums, parks, theaters, and shopping malls. But on June 22nd of 2022, the Pearl almost got blown away. The initial weather report called for partially cloudy skies and isolated rain showers. What they got looked more like a tornado.
Again, looks like straight line winds. Probably pushing 70, maybe 100. Not 100, 90, maybe 90.
You're looking at a freak squall, a sudden and sustained increase in wind speed between 16 and 22 knots, or 18 and 25
Because it's
miles
in a
per hour.
Venturi?
The wind is strong enough to send red road barriers sliding across the street.
It must
One
be
of
in a
them smashes
Venturi.
into a car, and the driver figures it's safer to stay put. Something heavy hits the ground in front of our cameraman, forcing him to take a few steps back. Meanwhile, the squall shreds trees, and more red barriers slide across the wet pavement. Someone on a scooter appears off to the right, though we have no idea where they think they're going. According to local reports, several roads were considered impassable the next morning due to uprooted trees and debris. False reports came out that a super typhoon was on its way to Manila, but they were quickly debunked. It was just a freak but powerful rainstorm.
Scary, man. Get hit by something like that.
The Aba Tibetan and Chiang Prefecture, known
Oh,
as
here we
Aba,
go.
but spelled differently, is an
Now you'll be able to
autonomous region
see
in central
the
China.
river
Like most
going
of
down.
Southeast Asia, heavy rain leads to frequent landslides, which can damper anybody's morning commute. Just ask these drivers who were a few hundred feet away from disaster.
It's a hell of a landslide. Holy shit.
The entire road fills with dust and debris. Another angle from the road below shows the cloud hovering over some bushes. One image shows where the landslide likely came from. Another shows the entrance to a tunnel under the mountain, now completely blocked by rocks and dirt. The final image may have been taken moments before the landslide began. Hopefully, those workers got out of the way in time. Local reports claim nobody was harmed during the landslide. Another driver allegedly made it through the tunnel in the nick of time, blasting out the other end like a stunt
Holy
driver.
shit. Holy shit. That's
On October 30th of 2020, a 7.0 magnitude earthquake struck in the Aegean Sea between Greece and Turkey. While the Greek island of Samos was closer to its epicenter, the Turkish city of Izmir suffered the most damage. Earthquakes have a bad habit of triggering tsunamis, and they don't have to be giant monster waves to cause severe damage. While standing on the shore and recording the ocean, one Turkish man was forced to hop in his car and outrun the incoming water.
Evet bakın oraya tsunami geldi kuzen yürü. Geldi hadi gel. Tsunami arkadaşlar çabuk Tufan. Çabuk. Aha geldi hadi hemen. Dur.
The small waves don't seem too menacing. Then, our cameraman's buddy sees the big one coming. They run to the car as water inches across the beachhead. Our cameraman hands the phone off as he drives, and his friend records their daring escape. Let this video serve as a warning. When you get a tsunami warning, move away from the ocean.
yeah, whenever
not
you see
towards it.
that the ocean is receding, That means run.
Pineville is a small town in central Louisiana. They're across from Alexandria on the other side of the Red River, and the original home of Louisiana State University before they moved to Baton Rouge. In mid-December of 2019, a severe tornado outbreak tore through the southern United States, spawning several strong and long-track tornadoes near cities like Alexandria and Pineville. During the storm, a worried husband was waiting for his wife to return from her doctor's appointment. As he stood in his garage, he recorded the tornado as it passed over his home.
He didn't suck them out. Oh, it is sucking them out.
The wind picks up quickly in front of his house. Branches snap and fly away from the trees across the street, and our homeowner is forced to take a few steps back. We see his trash cans sliding across the driveway, and then something big whips across the screen. Once he feels the wind in the garage, he knows it's time to get inside. According to reports, an EF3 tornado, or perhaps multiple tornadoes,
That's a strong tornado.
a 60-mile path of destruction between the towns
About
of
150,
DeRidder and
160
Alexandria.
miles an
Our
hour.
homeowner in Pineville caught the tail end of it. He was able to contact his wife once the tornado passed. She was safe and sound, probably a little shaken up, if anything. Pescadero, California is a small community in San Mateo County, about 50 miles south of San Francisco. In early January of 2023, several days of heavy rain and floods battered the West Coast community. On the 14th, the San Mateo County Fire Department got a call about a crack in the road. When they arrived to investigate, they found much more than a pothole.
Like a sinkhole. Landslide. I don't know what's so impressive about this, really.
The soft ground beneath the sunken pavement gives way, and everything starts sliding down the mountain. It picks up a little speed, but eventually stops after about 20 feet. The New York Times called the travel conditions punishing, as rain, icy roads, and landslides cut off several roadways south of San Francisco. California Highway Patrol warned people not to drive unless it was absolutely necessary. Fallen wires, flooding, sinkholes, landslides, it was like the end times had come to Southern California. So, what was the official advice from the California Department of Transportation? Stay home and watch the football games. Hey, sounds like a decent plan to us.
That sounds pretty good.
The Pasaman Regency is a county in West Sumatra, Indonesia. Like other Pacific Ring of Fire countries, Indonesia is highly susceptible to earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, not to mention the after effects they usually bring. On February 25th of 2022, a 6.1 magnitude earthquake struck West Sumatra about 2.5 miles below the surface. Most of the damage was concentrated around 3 villages near Mount Talakmau, where mudslides and flash floods made things even worse. A local named Yuhendri Yanto kept his camera rolling as one of those mudslides washed through his village. La ilaha illallah. A tsunami of mud and murky water tears through Yanto's backyard. He repeats the same phrase over and over again. We imagine it has some religious sentiment. The mudslide tears a tree down like it's nothing and continues through the village. You can hear a few others standing by, watching the disaster unfold. Indonesia had already dealt with heavy rain, floods, and landslides in the days leading up to February 25th. The earthquake simply shook everything else loose. According to Yanto, the mudslide washed away 4 houses and a mosque. Thankfully, no one was standing in the way when it tore through town. Imagine being the unluckiest person in a city of 5.6 million people. In the Turkish capital of Ankara, the second largest city behind Istanbul, one driver found out the world was out to get them. On May 6th of 2016, while their car was outside Nazgida, a small market chain in Turkey, a sinkhole opened up in the parking lot. Coincidentally, it opened perfectly around their car and nobody else's. Overnight security cameras recorded the car sinking into the ground, but nobody noticed what had happened until the next morning. It takes less than a minute for the black sedan to sink into the ground. The lights and alarm system go off, but we don't see how that helps. Imagine being so unlucky that your car is the one the earth decides to swallow. Come morning, we see firefighters and other people gathered around the scene. Many of them wear the same "I don't know what to do" expression on their face. Is it just us, or do those firefighter helmets look like Rebel pilot helmets from Star Wars? According to reports, a burst pipe beneath the parking lot caused the sinkhole. Water weakened the ground below the pavement, and the whole thing caved in around 5 a.m. The local government blamed it on a cesspool constructed in 1970, and therefore the Water and Sewage Authority didn't do anything wrong. It sure looks like a burst water pipe to us. The video ends with a firefighter lowering themselves into the hole, but the story keeps going from there. A vacuum truck arrived to pump the water out, but it also fell into the sinkhole. If you enjoyed this video and want to see another just like it, then be sure to click the link on screen now. With that, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Okay, people on Facebook, if you're just joining me, sorry about that. There was a little bit of confusion with some of the modular that had to go along with that. But we just went through some things. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on my Twitch channel. My Twitch channel is, I'm just going to make this real easy here. Here's my YouTube. Bam, that's my YouTube. Okay. And here is my Twitter. Okay. And then the last one is my Twitch, which this one I have to do manually. But it is Twitch Serpo 37. Oh, forget about that dot there. Shouldn't be there. Where's that dot coming from? Twitch. Let's get rid of that extra dot there. Okay. Now, those are the 3 ones. So we got Twitch, Gonzo, and that one there. All right. So now I'm just going to get rid of those. But what we're going to do now is we're going to take a break, because we're going to be moving into now UAP and some of the things that we've been seeing, anomalies in the sky that have been recorded all over the place. Now, very strange thing. Circular rings in the sky, strobing lights in the sky, and not UFOs. You know, we're not talking about UFOs. We're just talking about things like earthquakes, where there's a bright shining light that comes out from under the ground. So we're going to talk about some of that kind of stuff too. So let's go ahead after that. And then you know what? After that, we're going to play a game. We're going to play a game. So go ahead and write in. And don't forget to hit that subscribe and hit the notification, because I don't go on specific times. I go on when something needs to be go on, or needs to be put on video, YouTube, Twitch, whatever the case may be. And also hit that like button so it can spread it around so other people can see it. All right, but we're going to take a quick break now, and I will be back shortly. Serpo signing out for right now.
I apologize for the delay. There we go. I had a medication problem. So, but let's get into this. Let's play one of my favorite games. Here we go. I was gonna go with Yoshi, but let's go with Flower Cup Race this time. Forgot how to play. I forgot how to play. The buttons are different, so I'm gonna retry. The buttons are different on the controllers. Got him. Almost got her. Almost got her. Come on now. No! Dropped an egg. Well, that was shit. Doing horrible. Doing horrible. I don't know why it keeps on jumping. I'm gonna have to figure that out, I guess. My guy keeps on jumping for some reason. Let's try again. Come on. God, come on. Oh, what happened? Come on, come on. Star, star, star. Oh. Well, I got fourth. I got fourth at least. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my webcam that has just disappeared. It's kind of weird. The webcam just disappeared. Okay, that's a little bit better. Alright. Let's go. I came in last, or fourth on that one. Not doing so good. But I haven't played this game in 30 years. So, come on, if I can win just third. What's this other dude? Oh, it jumps? The feather jumps. Come on. And here we're off. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Squish him. Oh man, he got me. Yeah, he got me. Oh no. Oh, that just totally screwed me. That just totally burned me out right there. Alright, let's do it again. Come on now. Come on now. Somehow I fell off. I got him, but I fell off. Shit. Made all that headway, and then I fell off. Oh, come on. I just went right off that shit. Come on. I'm never gonna get this right. Come on. Oh, oi. People, this game is really hard. It's much harder than when I was 8. This game was much easier than it is now. Okay, let's go one player. Oh. Let's do, no. One player, fire card, 100. And what we're gonna do is we're going to pick Luigi because he's the bomb. And we're gonna do Mushroom Crush Cup Race and hopefully come in first. I'm trying to remember how to get that special start off. Okay, we are back, and we are going to be looking into the UAPs, or otherwise known as UFOs, just for a quick little bit. And the reason why I'm doing this is because this is national security. We don't know what they are. They don't have propulsion units. Infrared doesn't show any type of force being pushed out the back, and we all know that you need to have force pushed out the back in order to make something go forward, is Newton's law. So let's go ahead and take a look at these scenes, and let's see what is going on.
This morning, U.S. intelligence agencies confirm hundreds of additional UAP sightings have been reported. UAP stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, otherwise known as UFOs. The annual report on unidentified aerial phenomena now reveals 366 new close encounters since an agency was formed in 2021 to track them. That's more than double the number reported in the previous 17 years combined.
Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at the fly.
Officials say they can explain less than half those encounters, usually a mix of drones, balloons, or birds. The rest remain a mystery. Like this Navy pilot's video from 2004, showing a group of unknown aviators seemingly defying the laws of physics.
There's a whole fleet of them. Oh my gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west.
Or this inexplicable run-in off the coast of California in 2015.
Whoa, it's getting close.
Pentagon officials say it's not time to call the men in black just yet.
Who are you? Really?
Really? I am just a figment of your imagination.
But they say it's crucial to track, investigate, and disclose reported incidents to help protect national security and safety for all Earthling flyers.
I think one of the key points in this report, given the potential hazard that UAPs do present, notably there's been no reported collisions.
One reason for the spike in UFO sightings, officials say they've been working to destigmatize the topic in the name of safety, and more government agencies are working together to share information. Andrew, Christy?
All right, the truth is out there. Brittany Shepard joining us in New York from our Washington bureau. Brittany, thank you.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.
The truth is out there, a new report on UFOs or unidentified aerial phenomena.
So let's take a look at this one too.
The truth is out there, a new report on UFOs or unidentified aerial phenomena shows that sightings are increasing. Navy and Air Force pilots made 366 such reports between March 2021
since they changed from the 13 to the 19.
The Pentagon spokesman noted
radar
today that although there have been numerous close encounters with UAPs, so far there have been no mishaps.
And the interesting thing you see about in this video here is that it turns sideways. And Bob Lazar, he says that they turn on their belly, and they have basically three set in a triangle emitters that are controlled by an anti-gravity production, which what he said in 1989 was an element they didn't know of, which was a heavy element. And then they synthesized the element in 2013, I think it was, and they called it element 115, a heavy element that can bend gravity. So Bob Lazar's story is coming more and more true. It really is. And you can see that this, they try to explain it as because of the rotating, but when you look at the clouds underneath, the clouds aren't rotating upside down. They're staying parallel to the ground. So it is actually rotating on its belly. And then it shoots off at an enormous amount of speed. So they're trying to debunk this, these skeptics, and they're really long shot. Now, what I think these could be is it is possible that we have figured out a way in the future to travel into the past. And let's think, if you were an archaeologist and you wanted to see what it was like prior to now, let's say a big catastrophe happened, you were still able to travel back and see what it was like before global warming happened, which was, by the way, a natural thing. Volcano goes off, it puts out more CO gases and greenhouse gases than all of humankind combined forever. So one super volcano like Yellowstone, which has been raising, I think it's 25 centimeters, its rose. They have actually were closing it down. If that goes off, it's going to carry from the west to the east, from the high altitudes that it's going to obtain 40 miles up, and it's going to blanket the earth and cool the earth. Not allowing sunlight to come in. So we got a lot of worries coming in. So let's say something like that had happened. So these UAPs, let's say, are people that are coming back from the future, and they're archaeologists, and they know that they can't be seen and they can't be meet because of the paradox, a paradox of the butterfly effect. So maybe this is just us. The other theory that I had would be that there was an advanced civilization. They knew that the catastrophe was going to happen. They were underwater, so what they did is either they evolved and they adapted to be evolved underwater, because a lot of intelligent things are underwater. It's just they don't have thumbs. Well, maybe these do, and they're really low. Well, let's say they're an advanced civilization and they built a large city underneath there with a large bubble that's pressurized or whatever is adapted to their evolution. And they are actually coming out of the sea and seeing what is happening to the earth to really research what the next catastrophe could be and how to protect against it. With this technology, it could be that they don't want to share it with us because look what we're doing with nuclear weapons. Is in Chernobyl and things, these accidents happening. Maybe we're not ready. Maybe they're more advanced. So that's a crazy theory, but you know what? It's a possible theory. It's something that's, more plausible than extraterrestrial, coming here, because it's almost like we have a road to build, and there's an ant farm. When we're walking down the sidewalk and there's a bunch of ants, we tend to try to walk around them to not kill them. But if we're going to build a road and there's an ant farm there, we destroy the entire ant farm. We just crush them. So we look at those ants as if they're little, they're nothing. So if somebody could travel, another species, extraterrestrial, could travel hundreds of thousands of light years to visit us, when in fact, when they would look at us, if they could look at us through a microscope without traveling to us with control of time and gravity, because space-time is the direct relation between both of them. You have space and then you have the amount of time, which equals the amount of speed. But if you can take and manipulate the fabric of space where you ride it like a wave, even if you were on your home planet and you viewed our planet, it would look 100,000 years, I think, in the past. So you wouldn't be seeing anything that would be interesting. It would be like us looking at the ant, unless you just decide just to magically travel here out of billions upon billions upon billions. But let's say they're a galactic, I forget, there's 7 of them, I think. Maybe that there's a galactic camaraderie that's out there, and we're just not prepared for it yet, but maybe they're preparing us for it to see how fearful we are and how much we can come together. Or this is just a big ruse set up by government to make one world government. There's a Project Bluebeam that has been stated in conspiracy. Now, conspiracy really just means that it could be true, but we're going to make it labeled as a nutcase, when reality is a lot of conspiracies do come true. But let's get back to the video. Come on, let's figure out what they're talking about.
So far, there have been no mishaps.
I think one of the key points in this report, given the potential hazard that UAPs do present, notably there's been no reported collisions of military aircraft, or U.S. aircraft rather, and UAPs.
State Intelligence Committee Chairman Mark Warner, Senator of Virginia, said the fact that reporting is on the increase is actually a good thing. He said it is, quote, a sign of decreased stigma among pilots who are aware of the potential threat that UAPs can pose.
Okay, so I mean, that's some interesting stuff that we're gonna go. We're just gonna touch on a few things. I mean, we're looking at the World War III, so it's. So we went over some of the possibilities, and those are some of the resources from the United States government that what their intelligence is telling them. So we need to be a little more cautious and pay attention a little bit more. But right now we're going to be signing off, and I'll be coming back a little bit later, and we're just going to be doing some modifications, and then we might come back with something a little more pleasant. All right, and thanks to Serpo signing off.